What up? What up? Welcome back to the channel. A little more boxing talk here. I wanted to just touch on the results from Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury for a couple of reasons. My video was entitled 3 Reasons That Jake Paul Beats Tommy Fury. To be clear, I was, naming 3 reasons why I thought Jake Paul might win that fight, which was mostly due to circumstance. And not necessarily that I thought he was the more skilled fighter or anything like that. But I didn't put money on Jake or nothing. I was very torn in that fight. As a matter of fact, I tried to put money on Tommy, and I couldn't even find odds on the fight. It was really fucking stupid. The Badu Jack and Makabu co-main event had a thing I could bet on, but the Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury didn't. So whatever. I was only going to put like $20 on it anyway. I would have only won, whatever it was, $30 or something like that. So not a big deal. But I mean, really the only reason I was going to put money on Tommy anyway was because of the odds. Like I'm not the type of dude that's just going to bet somebody no matter what the odds are. Like I've never bet Mayweather in a fight or anything like that because you got to lay fucking 4-1, 5-1 in every fight and shit. And I'm just not that type of dude. So I may sit here and tell you, Mayweather's going to win, he's a lock, but that doesn't mean I'm going to turn around and bet on it because I don't have, $1,000 to risk to win 250 or $200 and shit like that. And if I did, I don't even really know what the 200 would matter to me at that point if I got that much money to risk. So, it's on one hand, it's sure money. On the other hand, in boxing, it's never sure money. You know what I mean? Somebody lands one punch and you lose your money no matter what they were doing. It could, they could be up 11 rounds to none and get caught with 30 seconds left. So I'm not really a big fan of betting favorites like that. But, the reason that I said there were 3 reasons Jake Paul could win was I just thought it was a matter of circumstance. I didn't like the amount of time that they gave him to get better. I don't even remember what all the things I said were, but I just thought that there were some circumstances that could have led to Jake Paul winning that fight. Now, a couple of things that I want to touch on is, everybody keeps saying Jake Paul's not a boxer, fight a boxer, this and that. And that was warranted. I stopped watching Jake Paul fights because I said, I'm not watching this dude until he fights a boxer. That's just the way it's going to be for me. And it wasn't like that from the beginning. When he first started, okay, cool, you fought a basketball player, you fought a wrestler, you fought a UFC striker. You kept working your way up, right? Then you fought a UFC striker again. Then you fought an old UFC striker. It just kept going. And I was like, all right, you could beat old UFC strikers. We're aware of that in a boxing match. I don't really want to just keep watching you fight random athletes. You know what I mean? If somebody's really got a beef with you, cool. I would love to watch you fight them, but don't just keep plucking random athletes and then acting like you're the man. If you're really trying to get somewhere, fight a boxer. Now, let me give Jake Paul credit because that was only Jake Paul's 7th professional fight. I mean, in the first handful of them, like, I know Nate Robinson was a professional fight, right? But Nate Robinson ain't a professional boxer. So those first couple of wins and shit like that got asterisks next to them. So call it his 7th fight. I mean, who fights a 10-0 undefeated prospect in their 7th fight when they had no amateur background or anything like that? So I give Jake Paul credit for taking the fight. As far as Tommy Fury is concerned, I mean, Tommy Fury is not the greatest boxer, right? But he's still an undefeated prospect, and he's still a Fury. Like, his record was 10-0, but the people he fought were dreadful. So I'm not trying to make it sound like Tommy is this fucking, this machine or whatever. But he is a Fury. He does have more of a boxing background than Jake does, and he is a 10-0 undefeated prospect. So you gotta give Jake credit for even taking that fight in his 7th pro fight. You know what I mean? Fighting against an undefeated prospect and fighting against a Fury whose entire bloodline are fucking fighters. So, I gotta give Jake credit for that one. As far as the scoring, I had Tommy winning 6-2, and then you had the knockdown from Jake. So I had Tommy winning by 3 points at the end of the day. I don't know what anybody was looking at giving that fight to Jake Paul. I honestly really don't even know how you could give that fight to Jake Paul in any type of way. That really doesn't even make sense to me. I thought the fight was decent. I mean, it wasn't an amazing fight, but you had to know what you were getting, right? You're getting a guy with 7 fights and no amateur background and another guy with 10 fights and barely any amateur background. So you got a professional fight that was essentially almost between two amateurs. And I'm not saying that to be negative or knock anybody. I'm just trying to paint a picture. I understood what I was watching before I started watching it. You know what I mean? Like, I understood there was going to be some sloppiness. There was going to be, some things that happened. And it wasn't a great fight. There was a lot of clinching. There was a lot of shit that went on where it was like, but I thought it was a decent fight. I thought it was a competitive fight, even though I had Tommy winning 6-2. Even taking the knockdown out of it, I still thought it was a competitive fight. I thought Jake was live in that fight the whole time. I mean, he obviously showed that by scoring a knockdown in the final round. So, as far as like drama was concerned and excitement, it was there to a certain degree. I thought they did a pretty good job. By Jake scoring that knockdown in the last round, it definitely showed you that, oh shit, like this fight is not over yet. You know what I'm saying? Now, as far as like Jake Paul, like this fight was supposed to be a measuring stick. You know what I mean? So, as far as Jake Paul and how good Jake Paul is, I got a couple of things I want to say on this, actually. As far as who I even wanted to win the fight, if I would have got that bet in, obviously I would have been pulling for Tommy, because I'm always gonna pull for my pockets to be fatter before I'm gonna pull for some random person that I'd never met in my life to win a fight when they're already making $5-10 million off the fight anyway. But taking that out of it, I never got to place the bet anyway. But taking that out of it, as far as who I wanted to win the fight, I was very torn, because I don't know how, you're watching. I don't know how long you've been watching my page for. Back when I was 20 years old, 25 years old, whatever the hell it was, a little boxing league had started kind of by accident, just from somebody challenging me and telling me, we were chilling in the living room, I could beat you or whatever. I said, bro, I got gloves right here, right now. We can go in the yard and videotape it. And then, other people, I want to fight you, and random people started hopping in. So it was never even my intention to start that little fight league that we had, but I love fighting. So, I mean, you can only call me out so many times before I'm going to say, yo, let's put the gloves on and go. So that part of me wanted Jake to win, just to show that it could be done. Just because you didn't grow up boxing doesn't mean you can't fight. You know what I'm saying? And even though I thought it was clear in that ring that Jake is not on the level of Tommy Fury as far as, technical boxing skills are concerned and stuff like that. But again, he still gave a good account of himself. I don't really think Jake has anything to be ashamed of at all. You got in the ring with a 10-0 undefeated prospect of Fury. You went 8 rounds. You dropped him in the last round. Like I said, there's no moral victories in boxing. You win or you lose. But, that's kind of a moral victory right there in a certain sense. The fact that you were even able to pull that off. So, the YouTuber in me, I don't even know if I would call myself a YouTuber. Sure, I post videos on here, but, I don't really like to label myself. I do a lot of things, and YouTube is not really my thing. So, I'm not going to sit here and call myself a YouTuber. But, for lack of a better term, the YouTuber in me wanted Jake to win, because I was like, yo, maybe this motherfucker could just fight. Maybe he's got something special. You know what I mean? And he just, like Deontay Wilder, for example. I mean, that dude is not, he's gotten better, bro. He's certainly improved. But that dude was never the most technical boxer that you thought was, had incredible footwork and incredible defense and just, pure skill. Wilder just has a fucking hammer of a right hand, and he figures out a way to land it in almost every fight. And that right there is a skill in itself. So no, he might not have the boxing skills of some of the other people that he fought, but he had the ring IQ to understand how to eventually land that punch, knowing that if he landed, it was going to be the end of the fight. Maybe Jake just had that, you know what I'm saying? And maybe you could say, oh, it's Ben Askren, it's this guy, it's that guy. That would never happen to me, right? But then when you get in there, it happens to you. So credit to Tommy for not letting that happen to him and not getting put to sleep by, by a shot, even when he was, I know he got dropped in the last round, but that was an off-balance shot. Still a knockdown, in my opinion. I mean, they're trying to talk about it was a slip. It wasn't a slip, bro. You got caught stepping with your feet in the wrong place, and he landed a perfectly timed jab. Was Tommy rocked? Nah, Tommy wasn't rocked or hurt, but it was still a knockdown for sure. So, again, credit to both guys when it comes to that. But, I mean, you could clearly see the difference in skill level as far as boxing was concerned, and I definitely thought that Jake wasn't quite on the level of Tommy, even though he still gave a good account of himself and he still made it a competitive fight the entire way. I think it showed two things. It showed that, yeah, Jake can fight and he can hang in there with real boxers, but no, he's not really quite on that level yet. The other half of me, the actual boxer in me, and this is not to say that I ever tried to make a career out of boxing or took boxing very seriously, but I did fight in the Golden Gloves and shit like that. So I do have some actual real boxing experience. I didn't even have a trainer for that fight. I just fucking signed myself up and went in and fought. So that part of me, the part of me, even maybe not even the boxer in me, but the boxing fan in me, wanted Tommy to win this fight because I do understand the levels to boxing. I do understand how difficult boxing is and how long you have to put in work to really grasp this sport of hit and not be hit in the middle of chaos like that. And a lot of times it's what people that are good fighters fail to realize about boxing. And it's not that I failed to realize it when I entered my Golden Gloves fight, but I was just curious to see if I could find a way to pull it out. And I didn't want to be 60, 70, 80 years old and be like, man, you could have done that and you just didn't even step up and do it. So I went for it. And I failed because there are levels. And unfortunately, I ran into a dude that was tall with long arms, good footwork, very good boxer. And that right there is my arch nemesis. So, you know, I wasn't overcoming what was put in front of me. But yeah, man, I was torn because the street fighter, the YouTuber in me wanted Jake to pull it out. And the boxer and the boxing lover in me wanted Tommy to win that fight. Not only did I want Tommy to win that fight, but that part of me wanted it to look really bad. I wanted it to be like, see, you can't just step in here and fight. You got to put the time in and really learn the sport and shit like that. So I thought we saw a lot of things as far as that was concerned. I mean, now look at the co-main event, right? Same weight class, light heavyweight, whatever, or cruiserweight, whatever it was. I think it was cruiserweight. I mean, Jake would have gotten fucking smashed by either of those guys, bro. Badu Jack would have lit him up. Makabu would have lit him up. So, again, it's levels. Jake can fight, bro. Jake can definitely fight. He hung in there with an undefeated prospect. He hung in there with a Fury. He dropped him in the last round. Jake can fight, bro. But Jake's also got a long way to go. Jake's talking about beating Canelo and winning a world title. Like, Jake's got a long way to go to get there, if he ever does get there. But it's not to say that he can't. The kid can fight. A lot of people that wind up being decent boxers, when they walk in that boxing gym, they can't fight. So if you could take a dude that can't fight, or maybe is a little bit soft mentally, and you can teach him so much that he's able to compete very well and make a living out of this shit, certainly I believe that a kid like Jake, who can walk in there and put professional athletes to sleep even though they're not professional boxers, the kid's got some sort of intangible that a lot of people that walk into a boxing gym on day one don't have. So I think Jake has an upper hand as far as, you know, that is concerned and where his ceiling is and what he can do. Also, I want to give Tommy Fury a lot of credit for... He ate a lot of shit going into this fight, bro. There was a lot of fucking pressure on Tommy Fury. Like, you're not a Fury anymore if you lose. Your career is over. Don't even come back from Dubai or Saudi Arabia, wherever they were at. You know, so that's a lot of pressure on a dude with hardly any amateur background and only 10 professional fights and shit like that. I thought Tommy did a great job of handling the pressure. I mean, even look at the 8th round, right? You get dropped. Was he hurt? Nah, not really. But he still showed the right thing with all the cameras in his face, with all the crowd cheering, with all the lights and all the threats and the warnings that he had, and you better fucking win, and yada. He got right the fuck back up, and he finished the fight, and he won the fight. I thought he won the fight pretty clearly, but I just, you know, I want to give Tommy credit for dealing with all of that shit that he had to deal with and still coming out on top and getting the win. I thought the card was great, man. You know, I was complaining in the past about a lot of these Jake Paul fights, not necessarily the Jake Paul fight, but the cards in general. The whole show was just a fucking joke. The people they had announcing was a joke. The people they had fighting was a fucking joke. You had a YouTuber or a reggae guy, a reggae singer fighting a fucking 8-0 professional boxer. The whole shit was just a joke, and I fucking hated it. match people accordingly, bro. I have no problem seeing two random people fight, but let two random people fight. Don't put a fucking reggae singer against an undefeated boxer. To me, that shit is just stupid. But this card was great, man. I mean, there was only one fight on the card that even went past the second round. And even that fight, the dude came off the canvas in the first round to win the next 3 rounds in a row and edge out a fight that he looked like he was out of in the very first round. So I thought the card was great. And let me touch on the rematch really quickly. Not only do I think there will be a rematch, I think there should be a rematch. Not because I think Jake won or anything like that, or I thought the decision was bad, but I mean, why not? It was a competitive fight. They both probably make a lot of money. Do it again. And I'm going to say the same thing for the rematch that I said going into this one. I think the more time that you give Jake... So what I'm trying to say is, if you look at what Jake did in the first fight, right? And you look at... I mean, Jake's only been fighting for a couple of years, and he's made pretty good improvements pretty quickly. If you look at what Jake has accomplished in a short period of time, I think it's feasible to say that over the next 6 months, let's say they fight again in... whatever, September or something, right? I think you could make the argument that Jake might progress further in the next 6 months than Tommy does in the next 6 months. And that's because Tommy's a decent boxer. Tommy has a lot more boxing skills than Jake has. So Jake can learn a lot more a lot quicker, in my opinion, because there's a lot more there to learn. Listen, Tommy Fury is no Mayweather. I'm not saying that. But if you were to look at me and you were to look at Mayweather and you say, okay, you guys got 3 months to train, I guarantee you on March 15th today, when you turn around on July 15th, the gap of how much better I am from March 15th to July 15th should be much bigger than how much better Mayweather is in July than he was in March. He's not really going to be much better because he's fucking incredible. So again, there's ways that Tommy could improve, but I think there's more ways that Jake can improve. So do I think Jake wins a rematch? I don't. But I think it's very possible, and I give Jake a better chance in the rematch than I gave Jake in the first fight. And even the first fight I thought was a pretty 50-50 fight. I'm still going to call the rematch a 50-50 fight, but I'll tell you, man, I won't be surprised if Jake finds a way to land that shot and ends the fight. Jake, I'll tell you this right now. Jake is not going to outbox Tommy and beat him on points. The only way he's beating Tommy on points is if he knocks Tommy down so many times. In an 8-round fight, if he drops Tommy in 3 rounds, that's 6 points right there in an 8-round fight. So, by that accord, Tommy would have 5 rounds to make up 6 points. He would have to score knockdowns of his own. I didn't see Jake hurt. I didn't see him look like he was going down, yada, yada. So, again, in a rematch, I would probably favor Tommy, but I do give Jake a decent chance. But, when my predictions are wrong and shit like that, I just like to get on here and talk about it sometimes, especially if it's a scenario like this one where I did want to give my props to a lot of things here, because I did think the card was great. I thought a lot of fighters on the card were really good. I thought Tommy handled that pressure and pulled out a win. I thought even though Jake lost, he gave a good account of himself. I don't really think Jake has anything to be ashamed of. So, it's not a fucking blockbuster, but I mean, I'm looking forward to the rematch, bro. I'll watch the rematch, and, best of luck to both men. At this current moment in time, I'll stick with Tommy in a rematch, but when that fight is official and it gets closer, I'll do another prediction video on Fury versus Paul too. Peace.